Hello, hello. My name is Ohad, and with me, Turiel.
Hey everybody.
Hello. And what we're gonna do today is we're gonna show briefly the HTTP protocol, and we're gonna do this using a browser, this one, and we're gonna be the server. We're gonna implement the server using Java. So um, we're gonna connect from here to a code that we written as the server, and we're gonna just reply with a simple hello world message from the server. Okay, so
Okay.
the first thing we're gonna do here is we're gonna try to connect to it. So if we are doing something like this is trying to connect to the server that I'm about to build. If I hit enter, it's trying to connect and it's gonna fail. Oh, why? Because we haven't written the server yet. Nothing is actually listening on that port and, you know, getting the information that the browser is sending and sending some information back. So let's go and start building that server. I'm gonna open my IDE and I'm gonna create a new project, simple Java project. Um, I'm gonna create a skeleton app and I'm gonna just call it HTTP. Okay, we have empty an empty code here. Doesn't do a lot. Um, and just to see what it does is I'm just gonna, I'm just gonna see that it works. Works. If I run this here, it's running, and it says works and finished. Okay. So now what we want is we want to be able to accept that incoming request from the browser. So let's see how we do that. Java listen TCP port. So we are implementing this on TCP level, meaning uh, what we get out of the box is just the communication mechanism, and we have to build the entire HTTP part ourselves. So, and that's what we'll do soon. So we will see how we listen on just any TCP port, and we're gonna have to implement the HTTP part ourselves. So if we go here, what we see is they use somewhere here, you need a server socket. Okay, so let's try to just use this server socket and learn about it as we go. So server socket, we need to create a new server socket, and what we see here is you need to give it a port. So most servers listens on port 80. We're gonna listen on a different port because I have some security issues with my system. So 8009 in this case, and we're gonna store this as a server socket object, and it complains that this might throw some exceptions, so I'm just gonna bubble them up. I'm not gonna care about this. We're not too interested in the Java portion here. We just want to get the data. So what do I need to do next? Let's see. Okay, we need to accept. So when we accept, we actually uh, tell the operating system that we are actively wanting to get somebody to connect on this port. So if we, okay, so when we invoked this, let's call it socket, when we invoke this, we are waiting for somebody to connect. And when that person connects, we get this socket. So now we should be able to see if the server is actually connecting. So let's see. We're gonna write something here like connected. And
When you're saying connected, you mean after the clients try to connect?
yes. So what we should see is we should see works. and then it's gonna do this, and we're not gonna see anything. We're not gonna see this connected until we connect from the client. Only then this method is gonna finish, and this socket is gonna have some mechanism to communicate to the client, to the browser, and then it's gonna spit out this connected, this part. Let's see this. So if I hit play, we see works. We don't see connected yet.
So where are we standing now in the code?
In the code, we are literally on this line.
So it's idle and waiting for a request.
Yes, it's blocked on this line. We can see it if we wanted to. Here, we can right click and instead do debug. Sorry. We can debug this. So I put a breakpoint. So it finished this line. If I skip over this line, it prints something. Here we can see it in the console. It printed this line. Now it's on this line. If I hit it again, it finished this line, and now it's on this line. And if I hit it again, it's not gonna finish. Okay, so it's somewhere inside this line.
Okay.
Didn't finish this until I go into the browser and I tell it to connect again. Okay, so now it did. And now it's here and it wants to print this. So if I let it go and print and resume, it's gonna finish. So it actually printed this connected part. And what happened here is the browser actually failed. So let's try to understand what happened. This, we actually communicated with the client. We accepted the request it sent. So we communicated with it, but we actually did not send or receive anything from the client. Instead, what happened is this, our program finished. And when it finished, what it did is it actually closed the connection with the client. It actually abruptly closed it. It reset the connection with the client. That's why the browser says something didn't work here.
So actually, I can see it in if I open a debugger in the browser, I can see the steps that happened.
Let's try. If I open the debugger, here it is. I go to the network tab. I try to filter this. I don't think we'll see it actually. Maybe if I do this. Let's run this again. Let's debug this again actually. So if I debug here and I skip over this line, if I come here, so it actually it's connected. We don't see any line here.
Sending a request to the server, right?
Yes, the client actually sent a request, even though it doesn't show up here yet. And if we let it finish, it actually said something happened here. It actually showed us that it sent some information, but it doesn't tell us what went wrong. Okay, it just says failed. So, but we are actually not that far from finishing this up and actually showing the data to the client. What we need is to send the right information. And the right information is according to this protocol called HTTP. So if we Google sample HTTP response, like we can see maybe a really simple one. Let's find an example. So this is almost what we want here. This is a simple example of an output. We would make a simpler version even. Let's take this. So what I'm writing now is I want to send back something meaningful to the client so that it can show something on the screen. Okay, let's try to see how we do it. So I want to send this. Let's see how I do that. So first of all, I need to understand how to send data to this socket. So if I look at socket, it actually has an input stream and an output stream. So an input stream is for receiving data from the client, which we don't care about now, because we are not actually gonna converse with the client. We're just gonna send it some information that it will understand and show it. But we don't gonna understand what it sends us yet. We're gonna do it later. But it has an output stream. An output stream is this channel that allows me to send information back, me as the server. So this is what we want. Now this output stream is something that we actually do not want to use directly, because this mostly deals with bytes, and we don't want to send bytes. We want to send strings, characters, something that is much simpler for us to work with. So let's Google how to send a string. Send string into output stream Java. So what you would see here is there's something called print writer that helps us send a string like hello and not be concerned with bytes. So let's try this. So print writer, you need to send it to instantiate it with an output stream. So we can do output stream. And now this print writer is what we want to work with. So print writer, you can actually write strings. Now let's try to do it. Is it right? Print. So we want to send this line, so print line, and we want to send this part. So this is the first string that we want to send. And then if we go back to the example, there's some parts, date, type, whatever. Actually, we don't need all of this. We just need this. And we'll talk later what do these things mean, and when do we need them, and what do they, when would you use them. But for now, we're just gonna try to make it work. So this is us sending, some data. And then if you look here, there's a blank line. It's important. This response has to be precise. There's a language. There's a full document describing every small detail here, what's allowed and what's disallowed. And if you send something that is disallowed, it's not going to work. The browser is not going to show you this. It's going to fail. So if you want to read more, you can find HTTP protocol. There's something called an RFC, which is this, which you can see the word RFC here. This is a full protocol. There's like hundreds of pages here. What every field is, what the values are, what it means, etc. You can read a lot of this, but this is really in depth. Sometimes it's just easier to look for examples like this. So if we go back here, and this is what we can send. So now after this empty line, we can say something like hello world. And let's just change the size to be correct. So this needs to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We are sending 12 bytes over, or 12 characters. And this is it. Let's try to run this. So let's move this here, and then here we're gonna write something like sent. Let's see if this works. Hopefully it does, and we can see something in the browser. No, it didn't work. And the reason it didn't work, I think, is because while we told us to send this, we didn't wait until it did. And what happened when this program ends abruptly, it closes all the connections immediately. So it doesn't finish actually sending the data. So what we need to do, I think, is to flush the data. And if you're not sure, you can click on this to see what it does. And or sometimes it's easier to read it online. And I think what it would do is it would actually wait until all the data has been sent. So let's try this. Hopefully it works. Okay, it did work. And we did get the text here. And we can actually look at it to see what happened. So you can see the browser sent a lot of data. You can see how it looks like. This is the data it sent. What it got from the server is this simple response with 12 bytes. And that 12 bytes is exactly what we sent. And this is exactly what the browser shows us. What we actually see here is the browser actually made one more request. It tries to show here. You see this small icon here? It's real.
Yeah.
This icon is the browser trying to render, a thumbnail. What is this website? So it actually made another request, even though I didn't explicitly said to get something, and that thing failed because we didn't actually implement this.
Well, which means that the client is looking for it.
Yes. So it actually made another request to the server, and the server was not available because our code finished, and it closed the server. So nothing was listening on port 8009 to be able to handle this. So that's it. So what did we have here? We had a server, we accepted one client, and we immediately responded with this simple response to show something on the screen on the browser. We sent this data and we finished. Everything clear?
So actually now the server is not working. It's like it's waiting for a connection, and when it responds, it finishes.
Yes. A normal server is not like that. A normal server always stays active and always able to handle incoming requests. And we can do that.
So how do we leave it like
okay,
to wait for another request?
So simple. What you would do, you can do this. So now, forever, it would go, get a new connection, do all of this. We might have to close the connection.
So can I now, can I have a variable with a counter and
Sure.
every request show which request was it?
Let's do something even better than a counter. Let's put some information. Socket get internet address, I think, or get remote here. I think this is going to be better because it would show us who connected. And then, so what we are doing here is we are getting a new client, responding, closing the connection to the client, and then we loop over back and wait for a new connection. Let's try this.
So actually what you're saying is that I have to open every time a new accept. One accept is for one request?
Yes. So if you read here, listens for a connection to be made to the socket and accepts it. This method blocks until a connection is made. Okay? Okay, so let's try this. We run. Actually, just to show something. Okay, just to show something. Finished. So it should never reach here. Oh,
Mhm.
it
Because
actually
of the
tells me.
line.
Okay, never mind. It actually tells me that it's never gonna get here. So let's run this. So it hasn't written this because nothing accepted it. And now if we refresh, we see that it actually worked. So we see two requests. You see this?
Yes.
Why do we see two requests? Because this time, the second request to get this icon actually succeeded because the server was
Okay.
waiting for it now.
Yes. Okay.
Okay?
Mhm.
We don't see an icon here because the data that we sent back is also hello world. That's what our code
Can we
does.
put a counter? Can we put a hello world 1, 2, 3, 4?
Sure. But what we see here is, and you see it here, we got two connections. We finish the first one, and then we get the second one. If you want to counter, okay, so this is going to be 1, 2, 3 client.
Okay.
Okay, everything happens really fast. Oops, I forgot to increment. Okay, like this. You should never do this in Java, but let's do it anyway. So now if I
Refresh.
refresh, go here, one client, two client.
But didn't we see? We didn't print. I wanted to print it on the print line.
Oh,
Hello world.
back to the server.
Yeah. So the
Okay.
client can see which request is seen.
Okay, so let's count bytes again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then I. 13.
Yes, but no. But I can change.
Yes.
More
For now,
than
let's keep it simple.
Okay.
Then we can talk about the more complicated stuff. We'll actually show it. It will be cool. So we have a bug basically now.
Yeah.
The bug is that I can grow more than one byte or more than one character. It can be 10, 11, 100, a million, but the content size is always 13. So let's see what's going to happen. So if I hit refresh, you see 2. Why 2? I guess the first one was for the icon.
Mm-hmm.
If I hit
Yes.
refresh, it's going to say 4.
Four.
Refresh 6, 8,
Okay.
1. Look at that.
1.
Why? Because the size did not adjust correctly.
Which mean that I can send a longer data, but because I said that the length of the data is 13, so it shows me only 13.
Yes, the browser
Mm.
actually stops after 13 and displays it. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
We can fix this code if we wanted
So
to.
actually,
So this should be 12 plus, and this is I, so new, sorry, integer dot toString of I
length.
dot length, and this is all gonna be, let's put it in a variable size, int size equal this thing. Okay,
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm.
let's try. Two, 4, 6, 8, 10, and this should be fine. So if I refresh a lot, look at the numbers. It doesn't send the second request for icon every time. You see, sometimes if I hit it quite fast. So now it's gonna work, and it's gonna work with millions. It's gonna work. That's it. So I think we covered something here. Now, just one caveat. This code is really simple. It doesn't do a lot of things that you would do in normal Java code. So for instance, if this code throws some exception, like this thing, then what would happen is our program is going to exit, which might be fine here, but if this is a server handling multiple requests, you wouldn't want it to
Yes.
break. You would want it
Okay.
actually to handle it correctly. There are other problems here. For instance, right now this server is sequential, meaning it has to finish one request to deal with the next one. Obviously, if you want to be able to support like many users on this server, you would want to implement it differently so that you can handle concurrent requests.
Okay.
Okay? A good example would be, what if the client connected and didn't send us, sorry, that's incorrect what I said, what I started to say. But because we are actually finishing every request really fast, it might be fine in most cases. Once we start having more complicated code, we would actually, it's going to take some time to handle every client, and therefore this wouldn't scale to support a lot of users. It will be slow and slow. Awesome, but I think we covered like the basics quite well. So on the next session, we're going to go deeper in HTTP. Awesome?
Yeah, cool.
Great. See ya.